Okay.
Okay, Peter, take it away.
Thank you, Xiaowen, for that introduction. Thank you for having me, and thank all of you for dialing into this meeting. A little bit impromptu, but it's a time of change. It's a time of creativity and innovation. So maybe that goes along with the spirit of the times. I'm here to talk to you about the ASTRA initiative, and I first wanted to introduce my NASA colleagues from headquarters, Jessica Gaskin, who is really responsible for this ASTRA initiative, and also the Doris Dow, who is the program scientist for Cosmic Origins. And they're both here and will help support me and answer any questions that I can't answer. Um, but the ASTRA initiative is an initiative that is intended to solicit community input for new strategic astrophysics mission concepts. And I have a number of links that I'm going to put into the chat. Put this first one in now. This link will take you directly to the text of the initiative that outlines the specifics. My goal here today is just to sort of introduce it in general terms, talk about some of those specifics, but really give you an opportunity to ask questions and to explore it together and see how this initiative might help or create opportunities for cosmic ecosystems and CGM science, because CGM science is at the very center of cosmic origins. It's at the very center of the recommendations from the ASTRA 2020 Decadal Survey. It's figuring very importantly in NASA's astrophysics mission going forward. So it's important that your community be kind of aware of this initiative and thinking about missions that are relevant to it. So as I mentioned, ASTRA is intended to be a mechanism for the community to provide input to NASA about new strategic mission opportunities. These are missions that would be, when we say strategic, what we mean is kind of large, you might say flagship, but not necessarily the flagship at the scale of James Webb Space Telescope and Hubble Space Telescope, slightly smaller perhaps. But anyway, large strategic missions that are going to do transformative science and just have a big impact on astrophysics, and correspondingly need a long time to develop and mature the associated mission concepts. So the ASTRA initiative is kind of starting us off at the very beginning of that process and providing a mechanism for the community to think about, to work on new mission concepts that could then be aggregated as part of this ASTRA initiative. And some small number of the mission concepts or types of activities would be considered for more detailed, in-depth study next year and in the following years as part of NASA's overall strategic planning for its future, cognizant of the decadal survey process that probably all of you are very familiar with. Um, to put a little bit of historical context within this, prior to the ASTRA 2020 decadal survey, NASA undertook four large mission concept studies. And those mission concept studies were worked on by large numbers of people. You know, some of you were involved in some of those studies, and they were very impactful in informing the decadal survey and its recommendations to NASA. And even though those particular missions weren't specifically advocated by the decadal survey, the work that went into planning of them has been incorporated into, for example, the Habitable Worlds Observatory that is being, actively studied as part of NASA's strategic planning process. So that was Astro 2020. Now we're starting to think about Astro 2030, and the process begins a couple years in advance, and we're kind of at the start of that process. So what new mission concepts might be important for the coming decades of astrophysics? This is kind of where we are right now. So the ASTRA initiative is intended to sort of systematize that a little bit, to cast the net as broadly as we can for the point of view of science and technology. And as part of this process, there's going to be a workshop in September, and I will put the website for that workshop into the chat now. This workshop we're calling the Community Science at ASTRA workshop, in which new mission concepts will be discussed, explored, and so forth. And out of that process, the ASTRA initiative calls for the program analysis groups in astrophysics community to kind of select some subset of them that they would then forward as a kind of a recommendation to the astrophysics division director for future study in anticipation of the strategic process that includes the decadal survey. So that's kind of in broad strokes, what we anticipate happening in the next 6 to 8 months with respect to the ASTRA initiative and this Ad ASTRA workshop. And my main message here today to inform all of you of this is to encourage thinking about this workshop in September and thinking about new ideas that you might want to submit to this workshop, and make sure that CGM science is part of the discussion for strategic thinking in astrophysics going forward. So I put into the chat the conference website where you can find the specific information about the conference. I also want to put this link into the chat, which is kind of a landing page within the Cosmic Origins program for things related to the ASTRA initiative. So that includes the Ad ASTRA workshop in September, but it also includes other things. We're planning virtual seminars and other activities to help and support the mission concept conceptualization development process. If you go to that landing site, you'll get informed about some of these events and see them as they're happening. And you can also sign up for an email list for the Ad ASTRA workshop. That's a great way to stay in touch about the workshop itself. And we'll include announcements about related ASTRA activities going forward. I should add that another aspect of the ASTRA initiative is the recognition that we're at a very interesting time in terms of technology and commercialization of space. We're, you're probably all aware of the developments that are happening with new launch vehicles. There are many companies entering into the space market. They're interacting with NASA through programs like the CLIPS program. And this may present interesting opportunities for science. And this is another area where we're kind of throwing out the gauntlet to the community to tell us how can we make use of this emerging space economy to do science perhaps more effectively, maybe more science for less money, that sort of thing. This is another example where creative ideas may unlock some new concepts. Just as one kind of example, we might think of constellations of spacecraft that could be done much more cheaply than was possible in the past, and that perhaps could enable new kinds of science that that could be done cheaply, more cheaply than, say, a major flagship observatory. So this is just one example. There may be lots of other examples, and the ASTRA initiative is intended to sort of throw it out to the community and let's explore and see what creative thinking might arise from that. So I know with Jessica on the call, I hope I've done justice to the ASTRA initiative, but as I mentioned, Jessica is really the architect of this, so I might just sort of pause and turn it over to Jessica and see, have I fairly captured the ASTRA initiative? Is there anything else I should add or that you'd like to add?
I think you did a great job. Great job, Peter. The number one priority of this exercise is to really identify the key critical science, where the science gaps are, and where we predict they'll be over this decade and the next, right? So it's looking across the entire landscape and then identifying also as part of this strategy here, we'll be looking at the technologies that need to be developed to enable the future of astrophysics as we start these studies. So there'll be a roadmap activity as well. And I will also say that these mission concepts, we've asked the community for 4 to 6. That's in addition to an X-ray and far IR study that are also being planned. But other than that, I think you did a great job. So
Thank you. Great. So that's all I had really in terms of prepared remarks. At this point, I'd just like to open it up for any questions or comments or thoughts. Yeah, hi, Kevin.
Hi, Peter and Jessica. Thanks. It's Kevin France, University of Colorado. So thank you so much for this presentation. It's really helpful. So I have two questions. One, I think Jessica might have just addressed, is that the predecadal studies in the last decade were for flagship missions, but the far IR and X-ray flagships are going to be studied through a separate process. So we should be thinking more like probe class missions that are picking up science that the X-ray and far IR flagships won't do. Is that to make sure we're not missing gaps? Is that the spirit, or am I off on that?
yeah, would you like me to answer, Peter?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. Sounds like you're walking. Um, no, so this is the number one recommendation from ASTRA 2020 was GOMAP, which is the Great Observatories Technology Maturation Program, right? It's actually architecture and technology maturation program. And the reason we renamed this ASTRA is because not only does it include some of our tech dev strategy, but also because we're lumping everything above $1 billion into this ask. So it is a range of missions. We're calling them large strategic missions. And yes, I get that we've been calling probes, billion and a half dollar missions, but to be honest, it kind of bugs me because there's a continuum of mission types that could fill that space. Um, it's just anything above $1 billion. And so we've asked the community to come up with a programmatic balance, not just, eight, $10 billion mission concepts that they want to study. But there should be some smaller and larger mission concepts in there as well. So just, balance across cost programmatically, size programmatically, and then of course science is number one.
Gotcha. So putting in an Astra concept that was intended to be a future X-ray or far IR flagship, that would be something that was sort of in a different category. This is more of, filling in the balance.
The reason we're starting with X-ray and we're waiting on the outcome of the probe competition to see what level of far IR study we'll do. But that was because those were called out in the ASTRA 2020. But this ASTRA initiative will include up to those big flagship missions. So it's everything from $1 billion up, looking at trying to identify which mission concepts we should study, in part for entrance into the next decadal, but also because we want to make sure that we develop the right technologies at the right time, because we're always working on programmatic constraints, right? We're always budget limited. But what we don't have is a really good plan for which technologies to fund when. So we're always ready to go with the next mission if we really want to, and if we have the capacity to do so. And so, as like a side activity that will be starting up at some point will be to develop a 20 to 30 year roadmap of technologies that are tied to all of our opportunities that we plan on putting out there. And then also potentially off ramps for down selecting technologies of certain kinds that are being developed at multiple places. So we can really, again, be ready to go. So the idea is to make whatever work we do here as a community that worthwhile and valuable and actionable at some point in the future, rather than just putting together a bunch of studies. What really bugged me last time was that we had 10 probe class studies that weren't well utilized. And they also weren't as well funded as the flagship studies. And that created a disadvantage, but it also was unfortunate because none of them were really used anyway. And then for the large mission studies, I would say, I personally believe that the 2,000 pages developed for each study wasn't the number one thing that was used. And so for these studies, we won't go to a concept maturity level of 4, which is that point design, but we'll back it up and look at the trade space at CML3 with a focus on the science. And that will be what we will submit as community to the decadal.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. That is, I've been not able to interpret all of the documentation, but your description is crystal clear. So thanks for that.
Great, thank you. And if you have any questions, we do have a place to enter those questions. And we will put, just like it with Explorers, I want to make sure that we have all the questions and the responses that were given online so everyone can see, because a lot of people are asking the same questions. Not by my choice. I would put out a bunch of documentation if I could, but anyway, it's part of the process. So can you put the question QR code or link in the chat, Peter? That'd be great.
Yeah, the link that I put into the Cosmic Origins page has a link to that question tool. So
thank you.
Let me get it specifically.
So any other questions?
Oh, that's a long link. Sorry about that.
Sanj?
I just put it into the chat. Sanj, hi.
Hi, sorry, I am very, very new to this, so it might be already in the text, but I'm trying to understand how is this call like overlaps or not with habitable worlds, because there are some ideas for habitable worlds and designs and stuff like that. So is it something that not what is captured by habitable worlds, or it is somewhere towards that? Like, is there a thought on that?
Yeah, Jessica, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so we are welcoming all parts of the community to participate in this. We do not want ideas that would replace habitable worlds, so that have the same science goals as hab worlds. That's already, if there's a project office for hab worlds, it's going down its path where it's high prioritization for us. That has not changed. But what we are looking at are potentially missions that might come after whatever the next flagship is. What is the successor to Hab Worlds? And the reason we're doing that is because we want to be able to identify any long lead technology developments that we need to start now if we're going to get there eventually. So, there are different prioritizations and different goals for different concept studies, depending on what the community wants to select, and then what Sean and Peg select, the division director selects for the ultimate mission concepts to study. But they should be part of the conversation because they're certainly part of the landscape, and we know that will stay the same. We also, when we start the studies, which will have STDT, Science and Technology Definition Teams, for each study, we would like to use lessons learned from Habitable Worlds Observatory. And there are things that they've been doing that I think they've been doing very well in terms of iterating architectures with science cases. And so we would like to take advantage of that, except do, maybe 1,000 cases where they were able to do a few cases. And that's because I think we're slowly learning how to iterate these architectures better using other newer tools that we might have now, like some of these new AI tools that I've been talking with Ryan McClellan about at Goddard, that we think we can use to make that process go faster. So yeah, anything we can use from Hab Worlds would be great, and then they should that community should also be part of the conversation. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sanj, I was just thinking and recalling a conversation I had with somebody earlier this week about CGM science in particular and HAB worlds, and just the conversation was about how how CGM science would really like to have a fast optical system, whereas HAB worlds is the planetary coronagraphy is sort of leading towards a slower optical system. So maybe that's an example of where, motivated by CGM science, you could start thinking about a fundamentally new mission that's 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 sort of optimized for CGM science that would be different than HAB worlds.
Thanks. That makes sense.
So I guess just a quick question from my end. Is there a deadline that people should respond to, or just, to get people to start thinking about this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So some of this is going to evolve, fairly quickly in the coming months because we are working towards the September workshop for which registration is already live and you can register for it now. We have an abstract deadline currently. The deadline is June 26th, I think. So something for submission to that workshop, would need to be submitted by that deadline. And it's worth pointing out that the mission concept development process can be very extensive, very long, and I don't think anybody at NASA wants the community to feel like they have to do this mountain of work, in the next 2 months or over the summer or something like that. Really, what we want are the core essential objectives and what would be enhancing, what would be enabling, what would be breakthrough science, and a general sense of the architecture. If you're familiar with the concept maturity level process, what we're kind of thinking here is concept maturity level 1 and 2. As Jessica said, concept maturity level 3 would be done much later. That's where you really need to dive into a lot of the technical details and explore the trade space and so forth. So that's not something that we envision would be done, this summer for the workshop in September.
All right. Any other questions? So, well, that's certainly very informative. Thank you for coming to talk to people in this group. And certainly, the point of recording this is to post this on the our YouTube channel, so people can catch up. For those who can't make it this time, they could still catch up on all the information you shared on our YouTube channel. So, but before people go, I'm sorry. So since we have this impromptu seminar, in addition to this new initiative, I also want to take this opportunity to remind people of something else that's also related to NASA mission, but more close in time, that's right now ongoing. Peter, if you don't mind, could I just make a quick note about the roadmap for the Hubble Space Telescope? But before I do that, I just want to make sure people don't have, if you have more questions for Peter on the ASTRA initiative, you could raise the question now, or you could email Peter or Jessica.
Yeah, of course.
The point of contact is listed on the website that Peter shared. I think I still need to figure out how to share the information in the chat along with the video. So for those who didn't attend this, could also get a link. But so if
and maybe Xiaowen, one final thing just to point out is that we have coming up next week our COPAG strategy retreat, and Xiaowen, you're going to come out and join us in Pasadena. So we're going to be talking about this more specifically in Pasadena. We're going to have some training on mission concept, thinking, and development during the workshop. And our hope is that Xiaowen, that you'll be there as kind of an ambassador for this community, and then you can come back and share what you've learned and share more information with the group after
Sure,
next week.
sure. Sanch will be there too.
And Sanch will be there, yes.
We'll work together.
Good.
All right. So quickly, before you guys, go away and do better things, just want to remind people about this email that I believe many of you have received, but including myself, I neglected it in the first incident. But someone brought my attention back to this. It's really crucial. It's not one of the typical call for proposals or white papers that you see. There's a critical sentence that I missed myself. This is very much related to the Hubble lifetime, that there's a likely point of entry into our atmosphere because of the decaying orbit. So it sounds like it's a very encrypted message, I have to say, but they are soliciting white papers, supporting the any effort that's ongoing behind the scene about boosting Hubble Space Telescope orbit, so we can really prolong the lifetime for this really valuable observatory for decades to come. So the deadline for the white paper is May 22nd. I just want to encourage everyone here to think about either joining existing effort to support any desire and the effort to prolong Hubble's lifetime, or develop a science case in 2 weeks. It doesn't have to be long. 1 page will do, no more than 5 pages. So just want to take the opportunity to advocate for this call. All right. So I'm gonna stop sharing. Sanj.
I want to take this opportunity since you mentioned, I intend to write a white paper on this CGM interface. It's very similar to the science case we wrote for habitable worlds, but slightly higher redshift for HST. So I will try to send it out invitations to everyone, but sometimes I forget to add people. But if you're interested and you don't hear from me in next 4 to 5 days, then please let me know. And you're most welcome to join that effort.
Thank you, Sanj. Thank you, Jessica. All right. That's great. That's really good to hear. All right. So if no more comments or questions, maybe we'll just end here. All right. Thank you again. Thank you, Peter, for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank you
all
for
for
having me.
joining.
Take care. Have a good afternoon.
You too. Thank you. Bye.